Well, it's been a long road to get here, but we finally made it to the last Majestic-Class battleship. After talking about her sisters and what made this class significant, let's round out the Majestic-Class by discussing the career of the HMS Victorious. The HMS Victorious was laid down in late May of 1894 at the Chatham Dockyard and launched the following year on October 19, 1895. She would be commissioned into the Royal Navy's Reserve Fleet on November 4th, 1896, but she wouldn't be actually positioned into an active fleet until the following year on June 8th, 1897. At which point she was assigned to the Mediterranean Fleet. However, before she could leave the United Kingdom, she was present at the Diamond Jubilee Fleet Review for Queen Victoria. With that out of the way, she sailed to the Mediterranean and became a key part of the Mediterranean Fleet. Once there, by the way, she replaced the battleship Anson, relieving it of its position within the Mediterranean Fleet. However, she wasn't with the Mediterranean Fleet for long. A year later, in 1898, in February of that year, she was detached from the Mediterranean Fleet and assigned to the China Station. However, on her way to China, she had her first major incident. While sailing through Port Said in Egypt, she ran aground pretty significantly, and while they attempted to get her unstuck with tugs, the efforts were ultimately unsuccessful. It took 2 days to get her unstuck, and ultimately they ended up having to move a large section of the harbor floor to get her out of the sediment she was stuck in. In 1900, she returned to the Mediterranean and was refit in Malta before being brought back to the United Kingdom in 1903 to undergo yet another refit. Those refits would be completed in February of 1904 when she would return to the Royal Navy, entering service as the second flagship of the Channel Fleet. However, it wouldn't be long before she was involved in her next major incident. On July 14th, 1904, she was rammed by a small torpedo boat that did minor damage to the Victorious, but did significant damage to torpedo boat number TB-113. In January of 1905, that big fleet reorganization happened, and like all Channel Fleet vessels, the Victorious found herself now in the Atlantic Fleet, where she continued to serve her current role. At the end of 1906, she was pulled from service in the Channel Fleet and brought to Nore to be part of the Nore division of the Home Fleet. There, she underwent a significant refit at Chatham Dockyard. This refit was sort of that big mid-service refit we see for a lot of these Majestic-Class battleships. She had her fire control systems updated, her radio systems were improved, and the goal of this was to make her a viable training ship for the newer battleships that were coming out, things that would be considered post-dreadnought battleships. The other major conversion here, which I don't believe I saw on any of her sisters, was she was actually converted to burn oil instead of coal, something that would become much more common after the First World War, but it was interesting to see it done to at least one of the Majestic-Class battleships. She returned to the Home Fleet in 1911, however, she would have another major collision not that long afterwards. In May of 1912, she was damaged in a collision with her sister, the Majestic. This collision damaged most of her stern walk and required some significant repairs. Those repairs would be completed later in 1912 when she would return to service that same year. With World War I around the corner, the Victorious found herself, like a lot of her sisters, sort of scrambled with the war on the horizon. The Majestic joined the Hannibal, the Mars, and the Magnificent in the 9th Battle Squadron in late July of 1914, a battle squadron that was remarkably short-lived because on August 7th it was dissolved. However, the Victorious did remain in position in Humber, where the 9th Battle Squadron was based. She would serve as a guardship in Humber before later that year being moved to the Tyne to serve as a guardship on the Tyne. Throughout 1915, she would begin a fairly significant refit. They would bring her into shipyards along the Tyne where they would remove her guns, providing them to Lord Clive-class monitors, and converting her into a repair ship. Once her conversion was finished at Jarrow, she was brought up to Scapa Flow to serve as the repair ship for the Grand Fleet, replacing a converted merchant ship named the Caribbean. She would actually serve this role for a very long time. Starting in early 1916, she would serve as the primary repair ship for the Grand Fleet at Scapa Flow until 1920, well after the end of the war. In March 1920, she was renamed the Indus II and brought in for some major conversions. The plan was ultimately to convert her to a maintenance ship for use by something called the Indus Establishment. However, not long after that, those plans were canceled and she began being converted into a harbor depot ship. However, in April of 1922, those plans fell through as well. That same month, April 1922, she was placed on the list for disposal and was sold for scrap in December of 1922. However, that deal fell through, and in March the following year, 1923, she was put back on the list of up for sale for scrap. She was again purchased in April of 1923 and towed to Dover, where she was finally dismantled. Thus ending the story of the Victorious, the last of the Majestic-Class battleships to, well, be in existence. At this point, all of her sisters had been sent to the scrapyard, or the bottom of the ocean, and that left the Victorious as the last remaining Majestic-Class battleship up until 1923, when she found her way to a scrapyard. If you'd like to learn more about some of the other Majestic-Class ships, their careers, or what made this class so unique, like its armament and its armor, I'll leave a link up here to my playlist I've built all about the Majestic-Class battleships. And remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Barbettes and Binnacles, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.